Hey, what's up coders, welcome back to my channel. Today we will see how to create nested tabs in your Flutter application. When I say nested tab, it's just not going to be two, it's going to be 3 layers of nested tabs. Well, when I was thinking about the UI, there were a lot of apps that I could think of, but then there was this one app that actually caught my attention, and that is the Google Play app. Because this app has such a detailed, intricate features in it, and also the features that I was looking for, which was the nested tab. That's why I've used the Google Play app. So let's move on to the demo and see how I've used it. Alright, so moving on to the demo, I've tried my best to create the exact version, but you would find certain tabs with empty containers because I could not fill in all the details. But I have tried to pick some interesting features of the app and I've added it. But the main concentration would be on the tabs. So the first thing that you can see here is the first layer of tab, which is the home, games, movies, book. And this is your second layer of tab. And in a moment, I'll show you the third layer as well. First thing, these tabs are scrollable. When I click on games, you could see that the color changes and it moves on to the corresponding sections also. And yeah, there you go, it's the book and the music. Home tab, you can see the second layer of tabs, and this tabs are scrollable. So in this, I've added the content in the first tab section. So the first one is a simple image. Well, the second one is a container with a confined height and width, and you can see that it has a horizontal list view. Similarly, I have another container with a horizontal list view. So that's about the first content of your second tab. Then moving on to the games tab, you can see that it has the entirely a different section of tabs here. Here I have added the content in the second tab, so which is the top chart. But the interesting part here is I have the first layer, second layer, and you can see that I have even the third layer of tabs. So you could see that I've just added the content in one tab for the demo purpose, but you could see that you can definitely have nested tabs, and this one is a simple vertical list view. So moving on to the third tab, which is the movies, I've added the content in the third tab, I think, yes, the top selling. So here I have used the first container as a carousel image slider, and that plays automatically. So for this I've used a library. So when I'm implementing this section, I'll give you the details of the plugin that I've used. The second component is a similar horizontal list view. First, we will see how to implement the tabs, and then we will see how to add the content inside it. All right, so there's just one last point that I want to talk about before I start the implementation. So it's always a good practice to understand the structure of your page and understand what am I implementing first, and then I can show you the code or show you how I'm going to deal with it so that you have a better understanding of it. So what I'm going to do is here, first I'm going to concentrate on this section, which is the first tab section. And once I'm done with it, then I'll move on to the second tab, and then the individual tab content. All right, so here I have a very simple skeleton of a Flutter application, which is just a stateful widget, and I've separated each tab into a different Dart files. So as and when I explain it, you will find how I've sectioned the content. So first here, as I mentioned, I'm going to concentrate only on the top content. And I've made this app bar a little interesting. It's not going to be the entire width. It looks like it's like a container which is placed over your tab, but it is not. But it's going to be again a customized app bar. The rest of the first section is going to remain the same because it's going to be a simple tab bar. So we will see how to implement it. First thing, you need a default tab controller, which is the requirement for creating the tabs. All right, there you go. Inside this default tab controller, I'm going to give the length of my tabs. So in my case, it's going to be 5. and then I'm going to create the scaffold, and inside the scaffold I'm going to create the app bar. But in my case, the app bar is going to be a custom app bar. I'll show you how to create this custom app bar as well. If you look at the UI here, you can see that every tab has this app bar connected, and even the app bar background and your tab has the same color. So when you click on books, you have one color with your app bar changing. So for that reason, I have added this background color and I've added this primary color property so that I have a good control of the values as and when I click on it by using the set state. So first I'm going to use background, and then for this I'm going to use the primary color. Here we are going to add the customized app bar. Here I've created the Google Play app bar, which is a custom widget, and in my use case I need to add few padding. So let me quickly add the padding details and show you how to create the Google Play app bar. Alright, I think I missed one thing. This child, which is my custom app bar, has to be inside the title property. So now we'll move on to the Google app bar. So it's gonna be widget. Other, I'm just using a row widget. So I've enclosed the entire row inside a container and I've given a particular color to it. So let me add those details. Custom widget, which has a container, and this container has a row widget inside it with another combination of containers in it. So the first one is the menu item, and then the Google Play text, and then you have the microphone. So as you could see here, so it's all placed in a row, and to give it a proper spacing so that it looks like this, I've added the main axis alignment and I've given a space between. So this section of the widget will create this section. Now we will move on to the tab creation. Moving on to the tab creation. Alright, so we have the title ending here. So here we're gonna add another property called bottom, and inside the bottom I'm going to use tab bar. So this is the usual procedure for creating a tab bar, but I'm going to add few interesting properties, and I'm going to show you what it is. So first thing I'm going to use is crawlable. So if you had seen in my demonstration video, I was able to scroll the tab. So that is possible by using this property. Second thing, I'm going to use an indicator color, because you could see that whenever I have a particular tab open, you could see the corresponding tabs have indicator, and I've given a particular color to it. So if you see here, it has an orange, pink and blue, but since we are covering this section of it, so I'm going to keep it white. So let's quickly add the indicator color. So at the moment I'm just going to use white. There you go. And next I'm going to add an indicator weight. So this one is gives you the height to your indicator. So if you look at the UI here, you can see the thickness of the indicator. If you want your indicator to be a very thin string, then you can definitely reduce this. I've also added another property called on tap. Now why am I using this on tap is, if you look at the UI here, when I click on it, it's just not moving on to a different content, but also you can see this, I have a control of this entire section where the color changes. So I need to have that control. So in order to do that, I have used this on tab, and I'm using an index so that I have a control of the index. So if I'm clicking on the first index, which would be 0, then I would say, okay, change the primary color. So what's the primary color? This is the primary color of your app bar. So that way I'm changing the primary color. I have a set of customized colors that I've used. So I'll quickly use those colors and I'll show you how it looks. So when I click on the first tab, my primary color changes, and that's how you have that effect of colors changing as and when you click on the tab. Now we will move on to the tab sections. That's where you add the tab part. Alright, so we have a switch case, we have our on tap ending, and okay, I think I'm missing one thing, which is the set state, which has to be inside it, and then I have the on tap. Now we will move on to the other section which is called the tabs. Now this is an array of widgets. So what I've done is I have used tab and I've added a container just to hold the text. So I'm just going to show you how the first tab looks like. So you can see here it is a container with the text home, and it has a particular color which is white and a font size. So similar way I'm going to create the rest of the tab. Alright, so I have added the rest of the tab details, which is the game, movies, book and the music. So now let's see how does our UI look like, and there you go. So as I mentioned, I have created the first layer of your tab, and as and when I click on the tab, you can see the color of your app bar, your tab changing. So this is the first thing. The next step would be to add the content. So this is the first part. So now we will see how to add individual sections. So first we will concentrate on the home tab. So if you look at the home tab, I have another layer of tabs. So we will see how to add this tab, and then we will move on with the content. To add the second layer of tab, let me minimize this. Okay, let's see where our tab ends. Okay, this is where our tab ends, and I think we have to app bar. Okay, after your app bar comes your body section. Now this is where your first second layer of tab comes in. So for this I'm going to use tab bar view, and instead of adding the content inside it, I'm going to add another tab. So for that I'm going to use an array, and I have defined this tabs in an individual page. So, and I'm passing a few color parameters because the reason I'm passing a color parameter is, say for example, when I click on home, I have an orange assigned to it. So when I move on to this, I don't want to again define it. So I'm passing that property or that particular property value to this page, so that in this page I have those values stored. Okay. So we will see what this home top tab actually contains. Alright, so now moving on to the second layer of tabs, which is this one, for you, top chart, category, family, since we are concentrating on the first tab. So to create this, I'm going to use again a stateful widget, and I'm passing the color value, because if you had seen in my home page, I had passed the color value here. So I'm using that, and then I'm using this extending or using it with single ticker provider state mixin, and in a moment I'll tell you why am I using this. Because we are using tab controllers here, so that when we click on it, we know which tab we are clicking. Alright, so here if it was a normal page, then it would have been a tab with content. But no, in my case it's going to be another tab. So I'm just going to follow the same procedure. So whatever I had entered here, I'm going to replicate the same thing, but the only difference is here it's going to be icon with text. That's the only difference. Then your content will come only when you click on this tab, the content is displayed. So as of now, it's going to be the same thing what I did for the first time, but there is a small features that I would like to explain. So let me quickly add the code and I'll show you what are those differences. I've used a tab controller, and then I've used an init state. And then I'm saying when I click on that particular tab, I want it to use handle tab selection. Now what it does is it sets the color. Now as I mentioned, why am I using this is, when I click on it, I want it to set a particular color for that particular icon and the text. So for that reason, I'm using that controller, and I'm adding this particular method. This is the only difference from your first coding and the second code that I'm going to show you. The rest all will remain the same. So let me quickly grab the code and I'll show you how it looks. Alright, so here you can see it has a default tab controller because I have 6 tabs here. So I've used that. Then I've used app bar, tab bar, and then controller. I've added the controller here. Then I've used the is scrollable, indicator weight, indicator color, which I've already discussed just a few minutes back in my first section. And then in my tab, I have used those controllers. So I'm going to say tab and icon. So if it was just you want to display icons, it's fine. But here what I'm doing is, if my tab controller index is 0, then I'm saying set this to this color value, else set it to gray. This is just that extra condition to ensure that my colors are set when I click. So similar way I have followed it for all the other icons. So this one will actually create this section. And then you have something called tab bar view, so that when you click on this, you need to add few content into it. So for that you need the tab view bar, and I've passed the controller here and the children array widget. Now inside this I have just two containers. So I'm going to explain what these two containers are in a minute. Alright, just to be on track, the first section of tab was covered in this section, and then the content was a home top tabs. Now this section where I added in this particular page, where it was again another set of tabs, and the tab bar view had this particular page which was for you tab, because we're going to concentrate only on the first tab. Now moving on to the first tab, what I did was, since it has three containers, so the first one was just a static image and the second one was the horizontal list view. So I have divided into three separate containers. So I'll show you how I've divided it, and I'll just walk you through the code, because it's something that I've already covered in most of my videos and I just keep repeating it. What I've done is, it's a simple container, added a list view which is a scroll direction vertical, and because you can see it's the vertical scroll, and then inside it I've just added size box. First one is an image, then again just to add that extra spacing I've added a size box just to give that extra spacing here. So then next I've added installed apps, that is this section, and then I have recommended apps, which is this section. So we will see what the installed app and recommended app, both are of same structure, so I'll just walk through one of them, and the next one you can just use the same one. So moving on to the okay, first let me move on to the image container. Let's see what this image container is. So it's purely just a simple container with a particular height, and it has an image which picks up from the network, and it's box fit. So moving on to the installed app, because install and recommend apps are almost the same structure. So it has a material, because I wanted to give that gray shadow effect and a different color from the one that's in the front and the background. So I've used a material with white, and I've given an elevation shadow, and I've added a column widget. So I always try to separate containers. Then I've used a column widget. The reason I've used a column widget is this is one section and this is one section. So I've split it into column, and this section I've made it into row so that I could get two text here, and this is basically a list view. The column with the label container, and then these are the apps, that is this section. Alright, so now let's see how to create the list view part. The list view is in this particular container, so let's check what this detail contains. So it's purely as I mentioned, it's a list view with image sections. So but then I have added it to individual widgets. So let's see what this widget contains. Here it is a column widget, and it has a container of a particular height and width, and inside this I've added my image. Now this is where I'm passing the values of my image, my app name, and my rate value. So that's what you can see here, the name, the image name, the app name, and the rate value. So I've used that, and I've made it into a single widget so that I could actually reuse it. And then I've given a border radius, and then added a text value and the rate value inside it. So when you do this, you get the horizontal list view with this text and the rating value. So this is how you get the first tab. So let's quickly run this and see the demo of it as well. So there you go. So we have the first layer of tab, second layer of tab, and in the second layer we had just covered the content of the first section. So which was the first one, a static image. So let me show you that section here, the static image section here, which was the image container. And then we had this second section, which was the scrollable horizontal list view, which was the installed apps. So you could see here, and then we had the label container and the app recommended container. So similar, we had used even the same structure for the other section. So this is about the first tab implementation. Now we will move on to the games, where I'm going to show you how to implement the third layer of nested tab. In this section, we're going to see how to add the third tab bar. So you could see the first one, second one, and the third one. Now, how do we add these nested tabs is, instead of focusing on the container, instead of adding these details, if you add another tab, that becomes the nested tab. So that's what we're going to do in this section also. So if you see the home page, for the first one I had created home top tabs, which was this section. Now we are going to add the second section, which is the game section. So let's quickly add the top tab for the game section, and I'm also adding a color factor so that when I click on it, so this is the section for the games, I get that color picked up. So we're going to add this section now. Okay, so which is going to be again a tab bar. When I click on this, you can see that I've used the same concept where I have defined the color property here. I've used the single ticker provider state mixin, and then I have used the tab controller. And then when I click on that particular tab, it has to pick up this particular color. That is what I'm using here. And then it's a simple same procedure that I've used, which is the default tab controller, but this time I'm using 8 because my use case has 8 icons or 8 tabs in it. So I'm using 8 as the length. And the same properties like scroll, unselected, render, and then I check if my tab controller index is 0, and then set that color value. If not, set it gray. So that way you're highlighting and selecting or not selecting the icons. And then the content of these particular tabs would be inside your tab bar view. And there what I've done is I've added your third layer of tab, which is inside another widget, which is, I've just named it as game top chart tab. But if you look at the content of this particular page, it also will be a tab bar. So when I click on this, you can see the same content again here. The only difference will be the length of your tab and the color and your tab details. So if you see here, the tab content is top 3, top grossing, trending, top paid. So those are the tab you would have here. The rest all remains the same. Other difference would be that in your tab bar view, that is when you click on this particular tab, that's where you have the content. So the content would come in this section, which is your tab bar view. And since I've added only the content for the first tab and I did not add the content for the other tab, so I'm going to show you what this tab looks like. This is the first tab content. The rest all is just a simple container. If you look at this, it's nothing but a simple list view with images and details. That's how you create your third nested tab bar. The only trick here is instead of adding content into the page, you have to add tab bars. Alright, so the app is built and you can see that the first tab with the second tab layer and the content inside it. And since we focused on the second tab content, let's see the game section. So you can see the first tab and you can see the second tab also, but we have added the content only in the top chart. So let's click that and there you go, you have the third tab layer, and we have added the content in the first section. So you can still see the details, but I haven't added anything but just added a simple container. So there you can see 3 layers in one single page. So this is how you add nested tab. Alright, so we had covered the home tab and the games, and now we'll move on to the movie section. So which is the third tab, and this is the section. So this tab also contains a second layer of tab, and I've added the content into the third tab, which is the first component is your image carousel slider, and the next one is a simple slider, similar like the one that I've used in the home section. So I'm not going to concentrate on this part. I'm going to show you how to build this section of it. So for this, I have used a plugin called Carousel Slider. I'll leave the details of this plugin in the description, and the version that I'm using is the latest one, which is the 1.3.0, and it is pretty straightforward. It gives you that carousel effect, and there are a lot of interesting factors it has, like do you want it like autoplay, do you want the enlarged center page, which I'm going to show you how it looks. So please go through this plugin. It is really handy if you want to build one like this. So first thing, let's add the first tab, which is the movie top tab with the color. So the moment I add this, I'm going to concentrate on this section. Now I have to build this part of so I'm going to say a tab controller which has 7 items in it, 7 tabs, and then individually I've given that if my index is 0, highlight this color, if not gray. So I've given that. Then moving on to the tab bar view, that's where my content comes. So in this case, I've added the content in the third section. So the first 2 sections are empty. So I have created a separate dot file for this, which is the movie release tab. Now coming on to this part. Now, as I mentioned, I've used the library, so make sure that you add the dependencies and use the proper package details here. So first thing you need is an array where you can store all your images for the carousel slider. Next, I have divided this container into 3 sections. So first one is it's a list view with my carousel container, installed apps and recommended apps. So that's what you see. This is the carousel, this is the installed and the recommended app. So when you see in the demo, I'll show you the sections again. So our concentration is on the carousel container. Now what this carousel container contains is, it has a few properties like viewport action. Now when I say viewport, if it is 0.9, it's going to say it's going to occupy 90% of your carousel, the page. Then you have something called aspect ratio. By default it is 16.9. If you don't know what this is, you can just click on it and you can read the details of it. Depending on the use case, you can change the values. So I'm just using the normal default values. And then I've used autoplay. Now the reason I'm using autoplay is sliding automatically, so I don't have to do anything for it. If you don't want that kind of automatic slider, then you can turn this off by giving false. Then you have something called enlarged center page. Is when that particular image comes to the center, it gets enlarged. You can see the difference here, and I'll show that in the demo as well. So these are the basic properties I've used, but definitely there are more properties which you can play around. And then I'm passing that particular array which I defined here, which is the image list. I'm using that, using the map and passing it. And then I'm using a container so that it loops through each URL and it gives that circular cut with the image and a box fit. That's it. That's the only thing that this function does. And it's pretty simple, straightforward, and really handy. That's it. The rest of the section is a similar thing which I already covered in my homepage video, so you can have a look into it. Alright, there you go. So we have the third tab, which is the movies page, which has the second layer of tab, and I've added the content in the top selling, and this is the slider. So I've just used some random pictures in it, and you can see that it autoplays, and also you can see that when it centers, it gets enlarged. You can see that difference here. So those were the properties of that particular carousel image slider. So this is how you create tab bars and also create nested tab bars. So as you can see in the game section, I have used this. So you could see here you can scroll the tabs. So yeah, that's it for this video. So it was a pretty long video. So if you have any questions, just leave a comment and I'll get back to you with the details. So if you do like this video, give it a like, and if you find it informative, please do share it. Thank you.